The grand chamber of the Galactic Alliance Council stretched vast and imposing, its crystalline walls reaching toward the stars visible through the transparent dome above. Thousands of representatives from hundreds of species filled the tiered seating, their forms as diverse as the galaxies themselves. Some floated in containment fields, others sat in specially designed chairs, while a few existed as pure energy within protective spheres. Admiral Tejo stood at the central podium, his iridescent scales shifting from deep blue to nervous purple. As the senior military advisor to the council, he had delivered countless reports over his long career, but none had filled him with such dread as this one. His 3 hearts beat an irregular rhythm as he surveyed the assembled leaders. The chamber's soft ambient lighting reflected off his scales, creating dancing patterns on the polished floor. Behind him, a massive holographic display showed real-time updates of their losing war against the Void Hunters. 7 red dots marked the star systems that had fallen in just the past solar cycle. The Void Hunters were ruthless, efficient, and seemingly unstoppable. Their black ships appeared without warning, stripped planets of resources, and left nothing but lifeless husks behind. The Alliance's most advanced weapons barely scratched their hull plating. Honorable Council. Tejo began, his translator converting his native clicking speech into the standard galactic language. I come before you with grave news and an even graver warning. His clawed hand gestured at the holographic display, which shifted to show a small blue planet orbiting an unremarkable yellow star. Our deep space scouts have discovered a new spacefaring species in the outer spiral arm. They call themselves humans. The chamber filled with curious murmurs. New species were rare finds, especially ones that had achieved space travel independently. Several council members leaned forward in their seats, their various sensory organs focused intently on the display. General Doyen, his dark green tentacles writhing with barely contained concern, rose from his seat. Admiral, have you studied these humans? Could they perhaps aid our cause against the Void Hunters? His translator gave his words a hopeful tone that made Tejo's scales ripple with discomfort. No. Tejo's scales flashed crimson with alarm, causing several nearby council members to flinch back. You don't understand. I have studied their history extensively. Their capability for warfare is... He paused, searching for the right words. It's unprecedented. Their entire history is marked by constant conflict. They've developed more ways to wage war than any species we've encountered. The council chamber erupted in dismissive chatter. Many members gestured with their various appendages in the galactic sign of disbelief. These humans looked so small, so fragile in the holographic display. Their ships were primitive by Alliance standards, using simple chemical rockets and basic ion drives. Young Commander Jaya floated forward, her crystalline form glowing with the ambition typical of her species. Admiral, with respect, her musical voice chimed through her translator. We cannot ignore potential allies in our time of need. Look at these statistics. The Void Hunters have destroyed 3 of our major shipyards in the past month alone. Our forces are stretched thin. We need help. Tejo's scales shifted to a deep, worried gray. You don't understand what you're suggesting. These humans, they don't just wage war, they revolutionize it. Every conflict in their history has led to dramatic leaps in their combat technology. They turn anything, absolutely anything, into weapons. Their creativity in warfare is terrifying. Surely you exaggerate, another council member called out. Their technology is centuries behind ours. That's exactly what makes them so dangerous, Tejo insisted. They've achieved space travel despite their technological limitations because they excel at finding unconventional solutions. Give them access to our technology, and there's no telling what they might do with it. But Tejo could see his warning falling on deaf ears. The council members were already discussing potential diplomatic missions, debating how to approach these humans for alliance. Their desperation to find help against the Void Hunters had overcome their caution. As the discussion continued around him, Tejo looked up at the holographic image of Earth. His scales shifted to the deep blue of resignation. He had tried his best to warn them, but he knew what would happen next. The Alliance would approach the humans, try to recruit them, and then he shuddered, causing ripples of color to run down his scales. He had studied enough human history to know that once they were drawn into this conflict, everything would change. The question wasn't whether the humans would defeat the Void Hunters. He had no doubt they would find a way to do that. The question was what the galaxy would look like afterward, once humanity had been given access to advanced technology and a reason to use it. As he stepped down from the podium, Tahoe made a mental note to begin preparing emergency protocols. The galaxy was about to change, and he had a feeling they would all soon understand why he had been so desperate to keep humans out of this war. The sleek Alliance diplomatic vessel dropped out of hyperspace near Earth's moon, its crystalline hull gleaming in the light of the distant sun. Commander Jaya stood on the bridge, her crystalline form pulsing with a mix of excitement and apprehension. Beside her, military advisor Minho's metallic skin reflected the soft glow of the ship's instruments as he monitored the human defense networks. They're primitive but organized, Minho noted, his sensors detecting the web of satellites and space stations orbiting the blue planet. Their weapons are basic, but their coverage is impressive. They've planned well for their technological level. Jaya chimed softly, a sound her species made when thinking deeply. Begin transmission of our peaceful intentions. Use all the frequencies their technology can detect. The humans responded faster than expected. Their message was simple and direct. Welcome to Earth. Please maintain your current position while we prepare a reception committee. Jaya watched through the ship's sensors as several human vessels approached. They were bulky, practical things, built more for function than aesthetics. The humans had made no attempt to hide their weapons, but neither had they powered them up. It was a careful balance of caution and courtesy that Jaya found herself admiring. The meeting location chosen by the humans was their international space station, recently expanded to accommodate diplomatic encounters. As Jaya's shuttle docked, she noticed how quickly the humans had modified their airlock to accommodate non-human visitors. Adaptable, she thought. Very adaptable. The human delegation waited in their conference room, a hastily but effectively converted module with transparent windows offering a spectacular view of Earth below. Jaya noticed how the humans had arranged themselves, military officers on one side, civilian leaders on the other, all wearing their professional best, but with subtle variations that spoke of different nations and cultures working together. Welcome to Earth, a silver-haired human female said, stepping forward. I am Secretary General Park of the United Earth Council. We are honored to receive you. Through her translator, Jaya introduced herself and Minho, then began their carefully prepared presentation. The holographic displays showed the advance of the Void Hunters across the galaxy, the devastation they left behind, and the Alliance's desperate need for help. The humans listened attentively, asking occasional questions that revealed both their intelligence and their caution. They wanted to know about Void Hunter tactics, their weaknesses, their motivations. Military officers in the back made notes and whispered to each other, their eyes sharp with professional interest. But when Jaya finished, Secretary General Park's response was diplomatic but firm. We sympathize with your situation, Commander Jaya. However, Earth has only recently achieved unity after centuries of conflict. Our focus must be on peaceful development. We would be happy to establish trade relations and cultural exchange programs, but military involvement in an interstellar war is not something we're prepared to consider. Jaya felt her crystalline form dim slightly with disappointment, but she understood. The humans were being wise, cautious. They didn't want to jump into a galactic war when they had barely established themselves in space. Then everything changed. The alert came during their third day of trade negotiations. Minho burst into the conference room, his metallic skin pulsing with alarm patterns. Void Hunter ships detected near Mars. They're attacking the human colony. The human representatives' reactions were instant and telling. Gone was the diplomatic politeness, replaced by cold, focused efficiency. Orders were given, communications channels opened, defense protocols activated. Jaya watched in growing horror as the situation unfolded on the monitoring screens. The Void Hunters had been watching, waiting for the perfect moment. The Mars colony, with its 10,000 inhabitants, made an ideal target. Far enough from Earth to delay response, but important enough to provoke one. "They're using our diplomatic mission as cover," Minho said quietly to Jaya. "They waited until we were here, knowing the humans would blame us for leading them to Earth." On the screens, the black ships of the Void Hunters descended on Mars. The colony's defenses, designed for asteroid protection, rather than military defense, stood little chance. Emergency signals filled the communications channels as colonists rushed for their shelters. Secretary General Park stood watching the screens, her face set in an expression Jaya couldn't quite read. When she turned to face the Alliance representatives, her eyes had changed. The diplomatic warmth was gone, replaced by something harder, colder. "It seems," Park said quietly, "that your war has found us whether we wanted it or not." Jaya tried to explain, to apologize, but the Secretary General held up a hand to stop her. Around the room, the human military officers were already moving, coordination replacing chaos, plans forming with practiced speed. "You should contact your council," Park continued, her voice still eerily calm. "Tell them that Earth is now involved in this conflict, not because we wanted to be, but because we've been attacked. And tell them." She paused, looking back at the screens where the Mars colony burned. "Tell them that we will respond accordingly." As Jai and Minho rushed back to their ship, they could already see human vessels launching from Earth, military installations coming online, a planet shifting from peace to war footing with frightening efficiency. Jai remembered Admiral Tahoe's warning about human warfare and felt her crystalline form vibrate with dread. They had not wanted this. They had tried to respect the humans' wish for peace, but the Void Hunters had forced their hand, and now the galaxy would learn why Admiral Tahoe had been so desperate to keep humans out of this war. General Do-Yun's tentacles writhed nervously as he watched the battle recordings for the 5th time. The command center's holographic display showed a three-dimensional view of the latest human engagement, with the Void Hunters near the Proxima Centauri system. Around him, his staff sat in stunned silence, their various alien features showing universal expressions of disbelief. The human ships moved in ways that defied conventional space combat doctrine. They flew in formations that seemed chaotic at first glance, but revealed themselves to be intricately planned maneuvers, where Alliance ships would maintain safe distances and exchange long-range fire. Human vessels deliberately closed to point-blank range with the dreaded Void Hunters. Lieutenant Hygen, her bioluminescent spots pulsing with anxiety, manipulated the controls to replay a particularly disturbing sequence. A human destroyer, already damaged and venting atmosphere, suddenly turned directly into an incoming Void Hunter formation. The alien officers watched as the human ship's reactor readings spiked dangerously. "By the ancient stars, they're going to," someone started to say. The human ship deliberately vented its reactor core into space, creating a massive cloud of superheated plasma. The pursuing Void Hunter ships, unable to change course quickly enough, flew directly into the radioactive cloud. Their supposedly impenetrable shields, designed to deflect energy weapons and physical projectiles, did nothing against the dispersed plasma. 3 Void Hunter ships emerged from the cloud, their hulls melting and systems failing. "They're insane," Hygen whispered, her spots flickering with fear. "What kind of species uses their own reactor core as a weapon?" "No," Do-Yun corrected, his tentacles moving in thoughtful patterns. "They're effective. And that's far more terrifying. Play the next engagement." The holographic display shifted to show a different battle. This time, human ships were using their planet's asteroid belt in ways no Alliance commander had ever considered. They had somehow calculated precise detonation points that sent waves of rocky debris toward Void Hunter positions, forcing them to either waste energy on shields or risk damage from countless impacts. "Look here," Do-Yun pointed with a tentacle. "They're not just fighting with their ships. They're using everything around them as a weapon. Debris, radiation, gravity wells, even the vacuum of space itself." Another recording showed human ships deliberately creating gravitational distortions by dropping out of faster-than-light travel at precisely calculated points. The ripple effects disrupted Void Hunter targeting systems and communication networks. It was a tactic that risked tearing the human ships apart, but they did it anyway. "Their casualties must be enormous," one of the junior officers noted. "Less than you'd think," Do-Yun replied. "They account for losses in their planning. Every sacrificed ship serves a larger purpose. They're not being reckless, they're being calculating." The next sequence showed something even more disturbing. Human ships were now using modified versions of Alliance technology, but in ways the Alliance had never imagined. They had taken standard shield generators and reconfigured them to create focused gravitational lenses, literally bending weapons fire around their ships. How did they even think of this? Hyjin asked, her spots now pulsing with a mix of fear and admiration. "We've had this technology for centuries and never." "Because we think like civilized beings," Do-Yun said quietly. "We have rules of engagement, accepted tactics, traditional approaches to space combat. Humans." He gestured at the display where another human ship was doing something physically impossible with its drive field. "Humans don't accept limitations. They don't just think outside of established parameters. They actively look for ways to break them." The command center fell silent as they watched the rest of the recordings. Each engagement showed new tactics, new ways of turning seemingly harmless technology into devastating weapons. The humans weren't just fighting the Void Hunters. They were rewriting the rules of space warfare with every battle. "Admiral Tejo was right," Do-Yun finally said, his tentacles drooping slightly. "We should have kept them out of this war. Not because they couldn't help us, but because once they joined, everything would change." The holographic display showed one final sequence, a human fleet executing a maneuver that involved using their own ship's shield harmonics to create a cascading wave of energy that ripped through a Void Hunter battle group. It was brilliant, effective, and completely insane by Alliance standards. "Send copies of these recordings to all Alliance military commands," Do-Yun ordered. "They need to understand what we're dealing with now. The Void Hunters might be our enemies, but humans." He paused, watching as another impossible maneuver played out before them. "Humans are going to change the very nature of warfare in this galaxy, and I'm not sure if that's going to save us or doom us all." General Do-Yun's tentacles writhed nervously as he watched the battle recordings for the 5th time. The command center's holographic display showed a three-dimensional view of the latest human engagement with the Void Hunters near the Proxima Centauri system. Around him, his staff sat in stunned silence, their various alien features showing universal expressions of disbelief. The human ships moved in ways that defied conventional space combat doctrine. They flew in formations that seemed chaotic at first glance, but revealed themselves to be intricately planned maneuvers, where Alliance ships would maintain safe distances and exchange long-range fire. Human vessels deliberately closed to point-blank range with the dreaded Void Hunters. Lieutenant Hyjin, her bioluminescent spots pulsing with anxiety, manipulated the controls to replay a particularly disturbing sequence. A human destroyer, already damaged and venting atmosphere, suddenly turned directly into an incoming Void Hunter formation. The alien officers watched as the human ship's reactor readings spiked dangerously. "By the ancient stars, they're going to," someone started to say. The human ship deliberately vented its reactor core into space, creating a massive cloud of superheated plasma. The pursuing Void Hunter ships, unable to change course quickly enough, flew directly into the radioactive cloud. Their supposedly impenetrable shields, designed to deflect energy weapons and physical projectiles, did nothing against the dispersed plasma. 3 Void Hunter ships emerged from the cloud, their hulls melting and systems failing. "They're insane," Hyjin whispered, her spots flickering with fear. "What kind of species uses their own reactor core as a weapon?" "No," Doyum corrected, his tentacles moving in thoughtful patterns. "They're effective. And that's far more terrifying. Play the next engagement." The holographic display shifted to show a different battle. This time, human ships were using their planet's asteroid belt in ways no Alliance commander had ever considered. They had somehow calculated precise detonation points that sent waves of rocky debris toward Void Hunter positions, forcing them to either waste energy on shields or risk damage from countless impacts. "Look here," Doyum pointed with a tentacle. "They're not just fighting with their ships. They're using everything around them as a weapon. Debris, radiation, gravity wells, even the vacuum of space itself." Another recording showed human ships deliberately creating gravitational distortions by dropping out of faster-than-light travel at precisely calculated points. The ripple effects disrupted Void Hunter targeting systems and communication networks. It was a tactic that risked tearing the human ships apart, but they did it anyway. "Their casualties must be enormous," one of the junior officers noted. "Less than you'd think," Doyum replied. "They account for losses in their planning. Every sacrifice ship serves a larger purpose. They're not being reckless. They're being calculating." The next sequence showed something even more disturbing. Human ships were now using modified versions of Alliance technology, but in ways the Alliance had never imagined. They had taken standard shield generators and reconfigured them to create focused gravitational lenses, literally bending weapons fire around their ships. "How did they even think of this?" Hyjin asked, her spots now pulsing with a mix of fear and admiration. "We've had this technology for centuries and never." "Because we think like civilized beings," Doyun said quietly. "We have rules of engagement, accepted tactics, traditional approaches to space combat. Humans." He gestured at the display where another human ship was doing something physically impossible with its drive field. "Humans don't accept limitations. They don't just think outside of established parameters. They actively look for ways to break them." The command center fell silent as they watched the rest of the recordings. Each engagement showed new tactics, new ways of turning seemingly harmless technology into devastating weapons. The humans weren't just fighting the Void Hunters. They were rewriting the rules of space warfare with every battle. "Admiral Tejo was right," Doyun finally said, his tentacles drooping slightly. "We should have kept them out of this war. Not because they couldn't help us, but because once they joined, everything would change." The holographic display showed one final sequence, a human fleet executing a maneuver that involved using their own ship's shield harmonics to create a cascading wave of energy that ripped through a Void Hunter battle group. It was brilliant, effective, and completely insane by Alliance standards. "Send copies of these recordings to all Alliance military commands," Doyun ordered. "They need to understand what we're dealing with now. The Void Hunters might be our enemies, but humans." He paused, watching as another impossible maneuver played out before them. "Humans are going to change the very nature of warfare in this galaxy, and I'm not sure if that's going to save us or doom us all." The Alpha Centauri system blazed with the light of battle as Fleet Commander Park's forces prepared their most daring operation yet. The binary stars cast shifting shadows across the assembled human and Alliance vessels, their combined fleets forming an unusual pattern that made Admiral Tejo's scales ripple with unease as he watched from the command center. "The humans call this Operation Solar Dance," Commander Jayet explained, her crystalline form reflecting the tactical displays. "Fleet Commander Park believes we can use the gravitational forces of both stars to our advantage." Tejo's scales shifted to a worried gray. "It's impossible. The gravitational calculations alone would take our most advanced computers days to process. One small error, and we'll lose the entire fleet." "The humans completed those calculations in hours," Jaya replied quietly. "They've been studying binary star systems since before they achieved spaceflight. They understand the dance of gravity in ways we never considered. The Void Hunter fleet appeared exactly where Park had predicted. Their black ships emerged from hyperspace in a perfect attack formation, their weapons already charging. Under normal circumstances, this would have been the moment for the Alliance fleet to retreat and regroup. But these were no longer normal circumstances. Park's voice came through the command channel, calm and steady. All ships, execute Phase 1. Trust your navigational computers. We've rehearsed this. The human ships moved first, diving toward Alpha Centauri, A in what looked like a suicidal plunge. The Void Hunters, sensing easy prey, followed. Alliance ships, despite their commanders' instinctive protests, matched the humans' descent. Watch, Jaya said, pointing to the tactical display. They're not retreating. They're building momentum. The combined fleet swung around the larger star, using its massive gravitational pull to slingshot them at impossible speeds. The Void Hunters, their ships too massive to match the maneuver, found their formation split as they tried to compensate. Phase 2, Park commanded. Second Fleet, emerge. From behind Alpha Centauri B, a second group of ships appeared. They had been hiding in the stellar radiation, masked by the star's energy output. The Void Hunters, caught between the approaching slingshot fleet and this new threat, began emergency maneuvers. They're trying to regroup, Tahoe observed, his scales now showing patterns of cautious admiration. But the gravitational forces are exactly what we calculated, Park finished for him. Their ships are too heavy to escape both gravity wells. They have to choose: face our main fleet or deal with our flanking force. The Void Hunters chose neither. Instead, they attempted to power through the space between the stars, relying on their superior shields to protect them. It was a logical decision based on their previous encounters. It was exactly what Park had planned for. All ships, execute Phase 3, Park ordered. Gravity wake generators to full power. The human ships activated modified versions of Alliance technology, creating artificial gravitational distortions. Combined with the natural forces of the binary stars, it created a devastating effect. The space between the stars became a maelstrom of gravitational forces. Void Hunter ships, caught in the turbulence, found their supposedly impenetrable shields tested by forces they were never designed to handle. The gravitational shear tore through their formations, ripping some ships apart and sending others spinning helplessly into the waiting guns of the Allied fleet. "This is impossible," one of Tahoe's junior officers whispered. "The energy requirements alone." "Impossible is what humans do best," Jaya responded, watching as the carefully orchestrated trap closed. "Their creativity in combat is unmatched. They don't just think outside the box. They deny the existence of the box entirely." The battle ended in less than an hour. The Void Hunter fleet, for the first time in the war, was completely destroyed. Not a single black ship escaped the gravity well trap. The Allied losses were minimal, mostly from stress damage to ships that had followed the humans' maneuvers. In the aftermath, as damage reports came in, Tahoe found himself studying the tactical recordings again. The humans hadn't just won a battle, they had changed the fundamental understanding of space warfare. They had turned stars themselves into weapons, used gravity as a blade, and proven that the supposedly invincible Void Hunters could be defeated. "We're going to see more of this," he said to Jai as they watched recovery operations begin. "The humans won't stop here. They'll keep pushing boundaries, finding new ways to turn conventional wisdom into tactical advantages." "Isn't that what we wanted?" Jaya asked. "They're winning the war for us." Tahoe's scales shifted to a complex pattern of colors that had no easy translation. "Yes, but at what cost? They're teaching us to think like them, to fight like them. After this war, the galaxy will never be the same." As if to emphasize his point, a human ship executed a gravity-assisted turn that should have been physically impossible, casually defying several laws of physics that the Alliance had long considered absolute. The war had reached its turning point, But Tahoe couldn't help wondering if the galaxy was ready for what would come next. The humans hadn't just brought new tactics to the war. They had brought a new way of thinking about what was possible. And that, perhaps, was the most terrifying weapon of all. The emergency alert echoed through every Alliance command center as reports flooded in from Earth's outer colonies. The Void Hunters, desperate after their defeat at Alpha Centauri, had unleashed biological weapons against human settlements. The attack was as brutal as it was unexpected. A virus engineered to target human DNA specifically. Admiral Tahoe watched the initial reports with his scales shifting to deep gray, a sign of profound distress. Around him, Alliance officers monitored communications from Earth, expecting panic, retreat, maybe even surrender. What they saw instead left them speechless. Instead of evacuating their colonies, the humans quarantined them. Within hours of the attack, Earth's top scientists were already analyzing the virus. Within days, they had mapped its complete structure. Within a week, they had begun developing countermeasures. "They're not running," Commander Jaya observed, her crystalline form pulsing with surprise. "They're treating this like a challenge." The humans approached the biological attack with the same creativity they had shown in space combat. They didn't just work on a cure. They began to understand the virus at its most fundamental level. Their scientists, already skilled at genetic manipulation from centuries of medical research, took the Void Hunter weapon apart and began to rebuild it. 2 weeks after the initial attack, Earth sent a message to all Allied forces: "Stay clear of sectors 7 through 12. Operation Backfire commencing." Tahoe stood before the Galactic Alliance Council, his scales now permanently tinged with stress gray. The holographic displays showed the results of Operation Backfire. Void Hunter ships drifting powerless in space, their crews incapacitated by a modified version of their own biological weapon. "This is why," Tahoe addressed the council, his voice heavy with resignation. "This is why I warned you. They don't just fight wars, they master them." The humans had done more than survive the biological attack. They had studied the virus, understood its mechanism of action, and then modified it to target the Void Hunter's unique biology. They had turned their enemy's weapon against them with devastating efficiency. "The modified virus is harmless to all known allied species," a human scientist explained via holographic link. "It only affects the specific genetic markers we identified in Void Hunter biology. They gave us the key to their own defeat when they attacked us." The council chamber buzzed with mixed reactions. Some members showed clear signs of approval, others of horror. The ability to turn an enemy's biological weapon around so quickly was unprecedented. The implications were staggering. "What happened to the infected colonies?" one council member asked. "All recovered," the human scientist replied. "We developed the cure alongside the weapon. Every infected colonist has been treated. We suffered 0 casualties." The silence that followed was deafening. The Void Hunter's biological attack, meant to demoralize and destroy human resistance, had instead given humanity the tools they needed to strike back decisively. Tahoe watched as tactical displays showed more Void Hunter fleets falling to the modified virus. The humans had developed a delivery system that could penetrate their enemy's shielding, using the Void Hunter's own stealth technology against them. It was elegant, efficient, and terrifying. "We should have listened to your warning," General Doyen said quietly to Tahoe. "We thought bringing humans into the war would give us an ally. Instead, we witnessed the birth of a superpower." The displays showed human ships methodically moving through infected sectors, collecting disabled Void Hunter vessels for study. They weren't just winning. They were gathering intelligence, learning everything they could about their enemy's technology. "They'll win this war for us," Jai observed, "but the galaxy will never be the same." Tahoe's scales rippled in agreement. The humans had proved themselves masters of adaptation, capable of turning any attack into an opportunity. They didn't just survive. They evolved, improved, and came back stronger. In the weeks that followed, the Void Hunters attempted multiple counterattacks. Each time, The humans had already anticipated and prepared for their tactics. The biological weapon had given Earth scientists insights into void hunter biology that led to other breakthroughs. Ways to detect their cloaked ships, methods to disrupt their neural networks, techniques to bypass their shields. This is why they survived on their death world, Tahoe explained to the council. Every challenge makes them stronger. Every attack gives them new tools. They don't just overcome obstacles, they turn them into advantages. The council watched in silence as another void hunter fleet succumbed to the modified virus. The message was clear. The galaxy had witnessed the rise of a species that could take any weapon, any tactic, any technology, and master it completely. As Tahoe left the council chamber, his scales still showing their stress-gray coloration, he couldn't help but wonder what the future held. The humans would win this war, of that he was certain. But their mastery of warfare, their ability to adapt and overcome any challenge, would change the balance of power forever. The Void Hunters had made a fatal mistake. They had given humanity a reason to show their true capabilities, and the galaxy would never be the same. The grand chambers of the Galactic Alliance fell silent as the Void Hunter Supreme Commander's hologram appeared before the Council. His once proud species, their black armor now dulled with defeat, formally surrendered to the combined forces of humanity and the Alliance. There were no dramatic speeches, no final acts of defiance, just the quiet acceptance of a civilization that had learned the hard way about underestimating humanity. Just hours earlier, humans had demonstrated their newest weapon in a distant, uninhabited star system. The display wasn't meant to be spectacular, but what the gathered representatives witnessed would be burned into their memories forever. A single human ship, using technology that combined Alliance science with Earth's unique innovations, fired a concentrated beam into a stable star. Within minutes, the star's core began to destabilize. Within an hour, the entire system was consumed by the death throes of its own sun. Admiral Tahoe stood at the observation window of the Alliance headquarters, his scales a mix of relief and concern as he watched the celebration unfold in the streets below. Species that had once been mortal enemies now celebrated together, united by their survival of the Void Hunter threat. Yet his 3 hearts felt heavy with the knowledge of what this victory had cost the galaxy. "You know," General Doyen said, approaching with his tentacles swaying gently, "your original warning to the Council has become required reading for all diplomatic officers. They're calling it the Tahoe Doctrine. Never underestimate a species' potential for warfare, no matter how primitive they might appear." Tahoe's scales shifted to a thoughtful blue. The humans proved far more capable than even I feared. They didn't just fight the war, they revolutionized it. Every weapon we gave them, they improved. Every tactic they learned, they mastered and transformed. Below them, human representatives mingled with Alliance species, exchanging stories and celebrating their shared victory. The humans had already begun dismantling their war machine, returning to their preference for peaceful exploration and trade. Their weapons were being sealed away, their warships converted back to research vessels. "That's what makes them so remarkable," Commander Jai added, her crystalline form glowing softly as she joined them. "They can switch from peace to war and back again with such ease. One day they're developing weapons that can kill stars. The next, they're helping us rebuild destroyed worlds." The victory celebration continued into the night, but in a quiet corner of the Alliance headquarters, a small group of senior officers gathered to discuss the future. They had all seen what humanity was capable of, and none of them would ever forget. "You were right, old friend," Do-Yun said to Tahoe, his tentacles forming patterns of respect. "We should have kept humans out of this war, not because they couldn't help us, but because they helped us too well. The galaxy will never be the same." Tahoe watched as a human scientist explained their latest peaceful innovation to an eager group of Alliance researchers. Perhaps that's not entirely a bad thing. They've shown us that there are always new ways to think, new approaches to problems we thought were unsolvable. The Alliance archives now contain detailed records of human military innovations, the gravity weapons, the modified biological agents, the star-killing technology. But alongside these were records of their medical breakthroughs, their environmental restoration techniques, their advances in peaceful space travel. They're already talking about establishing a joint research initiative. Jai mentioned, humans want to share their scientific knowledge, help us develop new technologies for exploration and discovery. As the celebration wound down, Tahoe received one final report. The humans had begun transforming their wartime innovations into peaceful applications. Their gravity manipulation technology was being adapted for terraforming, their biological research redirected toward curing diseases, their energy weapons converted to tools for stellar rehabilitation. They're teaching us a final lesson, Tahoe observed, his scales shifting to a peaceful green. The same creativity that makes them formidable in war makes them invaluable in peace. The galaxy had indeed changed forever. The Alliance had gained not just an ally, but a teacher, a species that could look at the impossible and see opportunity, that could take the established rules of the universe and find ways to bend them toward progress rather than destruction. As the last celebrants departed, Tahoe made his final entry in the Alliance records. Let it be known that humanity's greatest strength is not their capacity for war, but their ability to choose peace even when war would be easier. We feared their potential for destruction, but we should have recognized their greater potential for creation. The galaxy is forever changed, and perhaps, just perhaps, it is changed for the better. The stars shone brightly over the Alliance capital that night, each one a reminder of the power humanity had demonstrated and chosen not to use. The war was over, but humanity's influence on the galaxy was just beginning.